Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening, David. Dave, is that your hip new urban flat that you're living in now?
That's the ideal apartment that I wish I could have. But
someday, man.
Someday, you know, I'm manifesting it now. I like your background too.
Thanks. Yeah. YOLO countryside this time of year.
There you go. Did we get a confirmation from Peggy?
Yes.
Okay. We'll give her another minute or so. Thank you.
You're welcome.
While we're waiting for Peggy, just real quick, Ethan's here to help respond to some of the questions that came up at the last meeting regarding kind of legal parameters that we have to consider as we're looking at different maps and whatnot. So he does have another conflict though, so I've asked him to take the first part of our discussion. We'll let him go hopefully by about quarter after, 20 minutes after. So.
Okay. Well, we have quorum, don't we?
We do, yeah.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and start the meeting. And just want to say thank you, Ethan, for accommodating us and being here for us to ask you some questions on this. So, thank you. So I call the Special Advisory Redistricting Commission meeting to order on today, January 12th, 2022. I just want to make a note that this meeting will be conducted pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E, which allows the city to hold meetings via teleconference during a proclaimed state of emergency, when state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing. That being said, Madam Clerk, would you mind calling the order?
Yes.
Calling roll call. I apologize.
Yes, thank you. Bernardi?
Present.
East?
Present.
Kimball? Here. Moreno?
Here.
Simas?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. That moves us to item C for communications on public comment. Have we received any public comment?
No, we have not.
Okay. Are there no members of the public here today with us? Am I correct? So I don't see any hands raised. All right, that moves us right along to item D, minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes or not.
I move.
Thank you.
Second, Kimball.
Thank you. So that'll be a first from Anne, and then a second motion by Mary. The second, I mean.
I'll call the vote. Bernardi?
Aye.
East?
Aye.
Kimball?
Aye.
Moreno?
Aye.
Simas?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move along to item E for outreach process and public input. I guess we'll start by saying, Ethan, have you had a chance to see the questions that we had in our last meeting? I mean, questions of legality and how we can avoid some potential risk of a lawsuit there?
So I had a conversation with Ken generally about some, hang on a second. Sorry. I had a conversation with Ken generally about some issues that came up. And so I can respond to those, and there may be follow-up questions from that. But so it sounded like one of the issues that was being discussed was if there's kind of a dramatic change in the boundaries from what you currently have, you know, is there a certain like amount that the boundaries can change that's either permissible or not permissible under the law? And so the kind of most straightforward answer to that is there's nothing in the law that says it can't change, you know, X% or anything like that. However, when you're thinking about boundaries, one of the things that you should think about is if you do make changes, there should be some explanation as to why you're making those changes and why, you know, how the changes that you make, with the changes that you make, you're still in compliance with the law, you know, and that you haven't made some change that would have kind of negative impacts to kind of the goals of the entire district process. And if you're making these dramatic changes, it kind of suggests that either or people could construe it to mean that either you think there's some defect with the current district boundaries, or people could construe it as there being some ulterior motive behind it. And so you would, you know, if you were going to make that kind of change, I would want to there to be an explanation as to why you think that the boundaries with these changes are more appropriate than what we currently have. Now, obviously, you know, there's changes in population and things like that. And so there has to be changes between now and 2010. You know, there's been a significant amount of growth in the city, so they're going to change. But you should be mindful kind of about the goals of the districting process and making sure that they're consistent. And if you do want to kind of change the direction in which you go, I think it's in your best interest to explain that. You know, at a minimum, you know, you're an advisory body and the council is going to want to know that. But from my perspective, I would also want to know that to make sure that the boundaries are defensible and that people won't construe it as being done for some sort of ulterior motive. So that's that question. And then the other question that Ken asked me about is if there was a change in the boundaries and one of the existing council members were no longer lived within their current district, what impact would that have? And the short answer to that, it would have no impact during their current term. If there's a change in the boundaries, that does not affect their current term. So they would run out there, say if one of the council members who is up in 2024, if the boundaries are changed and they no longer live in their district, they will continue to be the council member for their existing district until the end of their term in 2024. After that, obviously, they wouldn't be able to run again because they don't live in the district, but it wouldn't affect them as to their current term. So those were the two questions I talked with Ken about. If there were other questions, or if there's questions that come up from my responses, I'm happy to respond to any of those.
Yeah, Ethan, one more clarification under that last scenario. If one of the council members was transitioned to a new district that, say, was up for election in 2022, they wouldn't then have to run in 2022. They continue to play out their current term through 2024. And anybody else in that district would be, you know, on the ballot for that. And then when their term's up, you know, they basically would have to wait, you know, if they wanted to run again for council, wait till 2026, I guess, to run for office.
Right. I mean, in theory, they could, they could resign from their seat in their former district and run for the seat in their new district if they wanted to.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But, they wouldn't have to. They could have their term.
Okay. Good. So were there any other questions that the commission had? I know, Peggy, you had some pretty good questions that were worth making sure Ethan was here to directly respond to. Right before you got on, I explained that Ethan's got a conflict, so we got about 10 more minutes maybe with him. So
okay.
Not to say we can't continue to follow up with him, but at least for right now.
Thank you. I do have a couple comments if nobody else wants to ask questions. The first one kind of relates to what we were just talking about with what happens to existing council members. And, one of the things that we were that came up in our discussion about, keeping the boundaries very close and just tweaking enough to adjust the population. And there was an argument that the benefit of that is that people have an expectation of their district boundaries and where they are and what their district number is and who their council member is. And that's a value that should be promoted by the, any boundary changes that are made. And I was just wondering if you would agree that that would be one of the justifications you would be looking for in boundary changes, or if that doesn't really, comport with the law in terms of what we're supposed to be looking at for a justification for the boundary changes.
I don't think that's necessarily that's not the intent of the law necessarily. The purpose of establishing districts isn't that. But I think from a public policy perspective, I think that is a good reason to keep the boundaries as close as they are. I think if you were in a situation, and I think you have to weigh these different factors, right? So if we were in a situation where we had districts and they were not working the way that the law intends them to work, where, the intent of the law really is to kind of, ensure that there's, an appropriate level of kind of representation to all groups in the, in the community. And if that was not working, then I don't think continuity we shouldn't say, well, we want to keep the boundaries as close as they are to what's existing because we want continuity, because continuity hasn't, if it wasn't working, then you would say, no, we actually want to establish district boundaries that are more effective. But that would be a situation where you would have to look at that. But in Woodland's case, to be totally honest, I think district elections have been a success. I mean, I think they did work the way that they were supposed to when we moved to districts. And so in this case, I would say continuity is a good reason for, and a good public policy justification for not making dramatic tweaks to the boundary. It's not the only factor, but I think it's a relevant factor in your consideration.
Yeah, that kind of leads into my next comment, but, responding to that, I just sort of think, you talk to ordinary people. Do you know who your council member is? Some do, some don't. Do you know what your council boundaries are? Pretty much nobody does. Do you know, what your council district name number is? Pretty much people don't know it. So there are certain people who are very politically involved and incumbents for whom that's front and center knowledge, but I don't think it's as much of a policy benefit as people tend to think. But I do agree with the issue that if you change the boundaries so much that, what would be considered the success, which is under the boundaries as they were drawn in the first districting process, two of the districts were majority Hispanic voters. And I think that was an important goal of the districting process. And so when I'm looking at the maps that are being proposed, I'm very concerned with the maps that show 0 districts with majority Hispanic voter population. And that's, to me, that's the reason to retain the current boundaries to the extent that that is the way to support that, that result.
And those are all so the last comments I think are very good comments and in line with what I was saying. And the first comment that you made, that's a very valid, comment. I think you're right. I think there's, it's a mixed bag, but I would say more often than not, people don't exactly know what district they're in or who their representative is. The flip side of that I would just note is I do think that, the existing council members are very kind of focused in on their district and getting to know their district beyond where they live and really trying to put, be cognizant of the interests of their district. And so if there's a dramatic shift, obviously it only happens every 10 years. So, they would get to know their new district. But I think, there is some benefit to that continuity on the other side too, because the council members kind of, that continuity and getting to know the area that they represent is part of the way that they're looking at their responsibilities. But it's a balancing, and you have to weigh the different factors as you think are appropriate.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I know we have you for a limited time. Commissioners, anybody else?
No, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I'm behind. So sorry about that, but this is great questions, and I really appreciate, like I said, Ethan being here and helping to get through some of these issues that we're going to be grappling with. So thank you for coming, Ethan, and thanks for the rest of you to having these good questions at the last meeting. So
it's my pleasure, and don't hesitate to. If you have more questions, I'm happy to come back, and don't hesitate to pass them through Ken and Anna, and I'll respond.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks, Ethan.
Super. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
So then the balance of kind of what we had talked about last week for us to sort of sift through tonight and ultimately hopefully come out of this meeting with continuity around what is the path forward to complete your process here, right? We have one more community meeting on schedule. That's next Saturday, the 22nd. And we need to probably talk, I think that's scheduled to be an in-person, right? And right now that's probably not realistic for us to do in person. So we'll need to think about, right, either postponing or modifying that to a virtual format. But the other part of tonight is last week we spent a fair amount of time sort of glazing over at the maps and trying to distinguish characteristics out of each one. And from that, we distilled kind of 3 key themes and gave direction to staff to, let's do a quick legal test and let's come back because the commission did some good thinking around here's, a set of 4 or 5 maps that we think reflect some different objectives in the various maps. And so we spent some time refining those and looking at those maps. We'll go through those again and for Mary's benefit, kind of refresh what those distinctions were. Top of mind, I think they had to do with, here's a map that tries to maintain as much integrity with the current boundaries as possible, but, provide the population distribution that we're required to accommodate. There was a map that said, let's just throw everything out and let's start from scratch, but let's maintain some core principles around achieving at least 2 of the districts with a voter population age that was Hispanic. And then if we could, maybe even achieve a 3rd. And then the other look was, since large portion of the population growth has been in the Southeast Spring Lake area, and that will continue to grow, is there a set of district maps that, maybe tries to balance the current districts where they are more or less, but let's divide Spring Lake in a manner so that they get 2 council representation and through 2 districts, but do so in a way that make sure that that new population from Spring Lake neighborhood is represented in a substantial way, right? Not a diminished portion of Spring Lake gets carved off into District 4, but let's try to maintain a reasonable voter population in that lens. So those were I think, kind of the three pictures that we were trying to paint through these maps. Danny and Anna have spent some time looking at some of the metrics behind them and wanted to share those with you because we weren't on the fly able to say, hey, what happens? How many people on a percentage basis are moving out of one district into another? What does that Spring Lake population balance look like? And then what is our majority Hispanic population percentage breakdown? So we've done a little bit of that thinking, want to walk through that with you guys. And then ultimately we'll have to come back to the conversation of at the next meeting, we had talked about, well, maybe what we do is we put forth, all of the maps that have been received. If you're interested, right, they're over here as a resource, but we as a commission have sort of distilled around these three principles, three different ways to look at districts on a go forward basis. And community, we welcome your feedback on pros and cons on these three different ways to look at it. And then you'll take that feedback, you'll spend the month of February, arm wrestling amongst yourselves as to, do we recommend one map to the council? Do we say, hey, each three of these maps potentially have value and here's pros and cons, council, you decide, right? So we can set that, approach aside for now, but, maybe what we do first is take a look at these various maps that have been submitted and some of the analytics behind them, and then we can come back to where do we go from here. How's that sound?
Very good.
Good.
Okay, so I think this is map 1 that Danny worked on. And if you notice, he added the column at the very end that says affected population from current district, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think this is a column that you pay attention to make sure it's 50 or above.
It's one more over on it. The third one from the right.
Oh, this one here? Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, this one. So there are 2 districts, District 3 and 4, that are over the 50%.
Yeah, so the reason we chose this one was because the two goals was to split Spring Lake. Maybe we need to adjust that just a little bit more to split Spring Lake a little more evenly, but the goal was to split Spring Lake and then also keep 2 of them above the 50% mark for the Hispanic Latino vote of 18 plus. So that last column, that is the number who are in their current district, how much people will move to a new district. Took me a little bit to analyze these maps and kind of overlay and break them all apart, but those were the numbers in that new column. So I did 4, I think, yesterday total, but.
So just so I can understand that means in District 5, which is currently all of Spring Lake and currently is at 15,000.
Yeah.
8,000 of those 15,000 would be moved to another district.
It didn't specify which one, but they will be leaving District 5 to a new district. Yep, exactly. And then you can see the numbers there of how much it's affected. So that's just total population. Now that will affect that column far to the left there.
And where did the people in District 4 go then? The 5,000?
They probably most of them probably went to 3. So I think
a lot of them actually went into District 5.
Yeah. Yes. I think some 3 and 5. 4 kind of just got wedged down in there between 2 and 5.
Right.
Where it was kind of more up above, that northeast corner. Yeah.
And Danny, District 4, as it's shown here, actually, I should say District 2 actually includes some of the Spring Lake specific plan area.
It does, yep. With the sports park area over there. Yep.
Yeah,
and the new Prudler, I think. Is that going to be part of Spring Lake? Do we know?
No, the mall expansion south is outside of Spring Lake, but that
Okay.
Huntington Square and Parkside 3
Okay.
right there on Matt Moore Sports
I have
Park.
the streets drawn in there. You can kind of see them above the community center.
Yeah.
But obviously there's no one there yet.
Right.
But then that puts, basically it puts Spring Lake residents into
Districts.
three
Yeah.
new districts.
Yeah, that's true.
That's something where we could, I'm not using the word gerrymander, but we can move the line to include those two little neighborhoods and see if it actually makes the population numbers balance even a little bit better.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I think this was one of Peggy submitted two, and this was one of them, I believe, but this was one that kept two at 50%, above 50%. That's why I chose this one.
Right.
For this exercise of showing that affected population. So, again, none of these are by any means finalized, so there's lots of room to play with these, and these might just be jumping off points to really refine it. So,
right. It does look to me though that districts 1, 2, and 3 are substantially the same. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at 1 and 2, I mean, they're in the lower hundreds. That's not a lot of people, and that's total people, not just voters. So,
but the boundaries
are very
are
small numbers.
they
look very similar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 3 kind of moves to the east a little bit. I think across 5 more than it is now, but again, that's all industrial. Really doesn't affect population lines. So,
and 2 expands to the southeast.
Right.
Across.
Yep. Because I think 5 now is reaching across east the other way.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one scenario, that we kind of talked about last week was splitting Spring Lake and then keeping the 2 above 50. So 2 kind of, focus areas we want to, look at going forward.
And Danny, there was one other map that broke up Spring Lake or put them into 2 different districts.
Mm-hmm. That was, I think, another one of from that other submission set. I didn't do the exercise of breaking apart getting the affected population change. Like I said, just because I only chose this one because it had the 50%, 2 of them above 50%. So it takes a little bit of time to run those. It's probably a good half an hour each one. Yeah. So I only got to a few yesterday and Monday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it, I would guess that the percentage of residents and even voting age residents in Spring Lake the majority currently would fall in District 5. And then, probably a 30% would be in District 4 and, 5% in District 2.
Yeah.
So it does leave a majority, at least for now. Spring Lake neighborhoods build out there on Pioneer, that would change a little bit, but I would say if we kind of put forth this map, there's some refinements we need to do to consider those issues. But.
Ready for the next one?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. This one is map number 4.
Yeah, and this was the original Stripe version. I think we got a new submission, but this was the, kind of the vertical columns. Like we mentioned, everyone all the districts maintain part of Main Street, also part of the flood zone. So, I think last time we discussed, what if we just kind of went radical and kind of just started from scratch? So, what do those numbers look like? And you can see in that last column, I mean, they're pretty substantial. They're all in the thousands. The lowest one's almost 3,000 people affected. So, just another scenario. But what would that look like? Should we just kind of throw out, throw it all out and start from square one? So,
and this one has, I can't read it too well, but it does have the 2 districts, right?
No, it has none.
None. I'm reading the wrong column.
It's right.
So we got another submission as well with a refinement of the vertical ones that are 2 barely crack 50%. I did get a chance to run the affected population. So I think we might show that one later here in a little bit. But yeah, none above 50%. So again, this is something, we want to, if it's a focus area, this would need refinement as well.
I would argue it does do a little bit better job with respect to balancing the Spring Lake population in two different districts. So, Anna, if you could scroll up just a little bit, you can see Spring Lake ends up in District 4 and 5 still.
Yeah.
Probably an equal distribution.
Well, for this one, we would have the justification that I've heard, which is it puts every district on an equal footing in terms of their interest in Main Street and flood control and north-south issues. So it's kind of interesting.
Right.
That's the theory, at least.
Right.
Everyone gets a piece of Main Street. I think we'd have to see the adjustment, because obviously the huge barrier would be the diluting of the voting age, of the percentage of Latino votes there. Okay. Any questions on this one, or should we move on to the fifth one?
Go ahead. I can go ahead and move on. This is the other one that Danny was talking about that.
Oh yeah, this is what I called 4A. This is another version of the stripes. I didn't do the affected population on the far right there.
Right.
But this did have two that had above 50%, but it, does probably a less well job of splitting Spring Lake, but it does keep that other side, the sports park area, together. It's not in 3 districts like that first one. So just another example of the stripes that can accomplish the stripe, the vertical columns with getting to above 50%. They're not very high above 50%, but they are there. So, yep.
Ready for the next one?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay. This was number 7. Here is the affected population column and the voting age.
Yeah, so I think the reason, at going back to last meeting, we chose this one. It had 3 above the 50%. So kind of unique. One of the first ones I think we've seen of that. This one, I believe, I could not tell who it came from. Someone in the public, not someone from the commission or someone that I know, but possibly someone from the community college based on just kind of the initials on the submission. But this was the one earlier today. Ken and Anna and I were kind of shooting some emails back and forth, trying to at least visually balance out District 4 to make it look, carry some of that industrial area. But man, it does not take. District 4 is really high on the threshold right now. What was it sitting at? And the deviation was, it's pretty close. But the second you add any one of those, like the one kind of right underneath south of 5, that's one giant census tract or census block, and that throws the population over the threshold. And then maybe kind of we went westward and trying to maybe bring 2 around a little bit, so we could kind of move 5 to the east up here. The second Casa del Sol area, that census block went out of District 4. They dropped below 50%. So everything kind of for District 4, there's some mobile home parks, and they're very dense and also tend to lean more Hispanic. From just what I saw today's exercise, and they throw that. It makes basically one of them drop below 50%. So it can balance out and kind of look visually right with the population, but you go back to the 2 census tracts above 50% instead of 3, which was kind of the unique aspect of this one. So, not a bad starting place. 2 and 1 kind of definitely changed shape quite a bit. So actually 2 kind of moves to like part of where 3 was. So it's a pretty drastic change. It is. You can see those numbers up there again, pretty high.
Yeah, and I would look at where District 2 is now. And I'm just bringing this up. That seemed to be a pretty cohesive neighborhood from the southern boundary of the city up to Main Street. And it does seem to be a fairly cohesive neighborhood. And so those people would be divided into 3 districts.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see a complaint based on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
Where's
definitely
the
raises some flags. Mm-hmm.
I apologize. I'm sorry. What was the area that you're referring to, Peggy?
Well, if you think about where District 2 is right now, as best I can recollect, it's from the southern boundary next to District 1, right? Up to about Main Street. And so it's kind of a big rectangle.
Yeah,
and
kind of west, between west and east. Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally.
And that area is now blue, green, and yellow. So I mean,
yeah.
They were divided, and as I drive through that neighborhood, it seems like it's all sort of residential housing and not that much else. So it seems to me they might have a complaint about being divided into 3 separate districts. Although, yeah.
Right. No, I see that, and it's a good point.
I mean, I'm just talking out loud now.
Yeah, that's like Mary's neighborhood.
That's right. It's Mary's neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is pretty dramatic. Like I said, I wasn't a part of the last meeting, and so I know some of these are new, and it's just really, I'm just trying to listen right now. But yeah, this is a pretty dramatic change. So, like I said, I'm just listening mostly. But is there a way to do some overlays? Because it's really, I think it would be helpful at some point to have the original, our current district boundaries on here somehow, and then this new boundary as the overlay. Is that possible to do in the future? Because I think it would help. It would help me, like, just kind of, I mean, it's one thing to look at numbers, like, okay, that's going to mean a difference of 2,246 people moving or whatever. Mm-hmm. But when you see the actual shapes and kind of the neighborhoods, to Peggy's point, it's a little, it's just for the visual. I tend to be a visual learner more. So that to me is something that's more an easier thing to take a look at.
Right.
And yeah, that's possible.
More of a gut sense kind of thing. Yeah. So I'm just wondering about those overlays, if that's possible.
I could probably do some, even some kind of faint lines over the top, at least.
Exactly.
So that's not the first thing you see. You want to see those kind of black bold
lines.
You
want to see the new things, but that's the new.
Yeah, that's good feedback. I could get that on there. Just especially on these kind of radical ones where it's like, whoa, what? That's really drastic. Yeah. What happened here?
It looks a lot different, but how do you use it?
Yeah, even Mary, the simple exercise of putting them side by side.
Right, and it's hard in this in this situation. I guess you could do that. I'm not fancy and have 2 screens and can do that, but I know
I think that might be just part of the limitation of being virtual is you can't have everything.
But you're right. 2 screens helps, but I do like the overlay piece. It's really very helpful.
Yeah, we could play around with getting that on there without it being distracting. You know what I mean?
And yeah, I would agree with Peggy that you're not going to just have one person from District 2 that's going to have an issue with this. This is a dramatic change.
Yeah, and similarly, north of Main Street, from Beamer Park down to Main Street, they're now 2 separate districts. And
very cohesive there. Yeah. The older communities. I mean, if I had to, it seems a little silly, but it's like Spring Lake's the newest. So it's kind of like, do they have the most cohesive? I don't know. I would think that if I had to break something up, I would break up more in Spring Lake than anything else, just because it's a newer community, but that's a little biased probably. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think on this one, when you look at Spring Lake, it picks up a whole bunch of neighborhoods to the west.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I don't think anybody in Spring Lake would be bothered by that.
Spring Lake wouldn't, no.
It wouldn't. It wouldn't be something that would feel wrong. But I could see District 2 being divided into 3 would be upset.
Yeah.
All right. How about next map?
The next one is, and the last one is, oh no, we have 2 more. This one is 7.
Yeah, that was the one we just discussed.
That's one
No,
we
that's the one we just looked at.
Yeah, I think 10 is the next one, right?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I think 10 is kind of the status quo map is what I'm, kind of the least amount of change. You can see when District 1 does not change at all. They pick up people, but no one leaves the district. So it's kind of the least amount of change. We still keep 2 above 50%, I believe. Oh, no, 1 is right at the break line there, 49.23. So you're down to 1 in this scenario. Possibly something could be changed to keep 2, but
yeah, I think
this was
pick up more blocks to get that.
Did you make that bigger again, like you just did? That was actually really helpful.
Like this?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was trying to read maybe just 1 down. Yep.
Yes, this is the column right here.
Percentages, right? So there's
just 1
and 1 that's very
majority.
Yeah. We had 3. I think we're kind of deciding between that were visually similar to the current boundaries. I think it's the one we landed on at the last meeting, just to do this analysis on. But yeah, it does lose that 50% in one of them, and that's obviously a big strike against it, I think.
Yeah.
But some of the numbers are pretty low in disruption. Obviously, 5 is going to be disrupted quite a bit.
5 is going to be
because it's so much over the population. We have to move people out, so that kind of throw out District 5's number. But
so it looks like about 1/3 of Spring Lake is in a new district, and is that in 1 new district or 2 new districts?
No, Spring Lake stays all in on 1.
Yeah, what they're giving up is kind of the southeast area, the north of.
Yeah, District 5 loses neighborhoods that are outside of Spring Lake.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
This is what I mean by how overlays are helpful.
Yeah.
Sure. Or a side by side. Yeah.
Or side by side, but we can't.
Yeah. Yeah, they kind of have that big section of. Oh, sorry, David. Kind of above Gibson,
right.
East of Pioneer, that southeast neighborhood, I think is what we generally call it. But they have a lot of that now, and they would give that up to 4. So.
Yeah, I mean, I like it from the movement perspective that it's more limited. But I am definitely going to be a proponent for at least 2 districts being majority Latino.
Yeah,
that's where I'm going to land. At least for the options out there that we provide. So, but this is close. It's close, but I still would. That would be.
Yeah, I mean, a slight adjustment in your.
A slight adjustment probably could get us there. It sounds like or looks like. Yeah.
What's the adjustment we're trying to make here to be, expect the growth coming out of District 5 and kind of distributing that population a little bit more towards District 2 or 4? I mean,
2 and 4 is where those are going mostly. 4 more than 2.
So there's still building in Spring Lake. Do you have numbers on what the projected population will look like?
Yeah, we could. Yeah, these are 2 years old, probably numbers. Yeah, well, we're going to make some assumptions, approximations as to what the net additional population, it says total population is being affected.
Mhm.
Is that right? Yeah. As opposed to voters. Yeah, so we're probably, another, we'll call it 1,000 households at average of 2.7 per household, 2,700.
Which, I think that is a basis for putting a lower number in Spring Lake.
Right. Yeah, it'd be probably in the 11,000.
Yeah.
Range.
As low as we possibly can. Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
The lowest minimum or the minimum.
Yeah, on this one, I mean, Spring Lake District 5 is like almost right on the target number. So yeah, if you could, just slide that down, you could help affect that later on.
Yeah, if we took an area with a higher Hispanic population and put that back into 4. Yeah, but 4's getting up there on the population scale. Huh?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
4, yeah. Oh gosh, sorry, my dog. I got to go put him out. He's telling me he wants out.
Okay, well, I guess those are the latest round of maps that try to address these various characteristics we've talked around. So what's the commission's pleasure on how do we use these to help move us forward towards a recommendation?
Well, I would say, reducing the number of maps would be a good thing. And one way to do that would be look at map 4 and 4A. The one had the 2 districts over 50% Hispanic voters and the one didn't. So if there were a way to kind of fiddle with those so you get something in between the 2 that maintains the 2 districts, then we could just have map 4 instead of 4 and 4A.
Right.
Right.
There's no point in keeping one of them if it's not even going to pass.
Right.
The requirement.
Pass that sniff test.
I mean, I'm hearing consensus, I think, amongst the commission that one threshold metric is the minimum of 2 districts over 50% Hispanic voter population, correct?
Yeah, at least on my end.
Is that accurate? So not even worth putting out a map that doesn't achieve that baseline metric?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't see any way that we, propose a map that doesn't have the same features that are in the existing maps, which is why they went to districts to begin with. And, if there were other countervailing benefits that seem to achieve similar or better goals, I'd be willing to listen to that, but I just don't see how we get by answering to the question about why don't you have 2 districts? Oh, well, we did it this way, so we have this much better thing. I don't know what that better thing would be. So I definitely look to, at this point, unless someone has some really brilliant ideas, I would look for the 2 districts in any map that we put forward.
What are the current percentages of Latino voters in the districts we have today that are the majority? I mean, how close to 50 are they?
They're pretty close, as I recall.
They are
just over 50. Yeah.
Just over. Okay, so we definitely want to equal that. because there's a couple in there that were like that of the new maps that were just over 50, and I think you had said, oh, it's just over 50. But I mean, if that's also what we currently have too, then I feel like that might be fine.
Can you see the current map or?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Just can you make it again? Can you zoom it in just a touch? And then, yep. Perfect.
So is this right here?
We have two. Well, those are, yeah. So see, those are both 53.8, 53.4. So that to me, I mean, yes, it's just over 50, but it's not 50.8 or,
Right.
you know, so that's the only thing there is we probably want to do. We want to think about that a little bit. Anyway. Yeah, those are almost exactly the same. It's close. And it's 3 and 4. Okay.
Right, and then we have, you know, a couple maps that take Spring Lake and put them in at least 2 different districts. Fair to say the map that showed Spring Lake in 3 different districts is too problematic.
Which map was that?
I want to say that was this one here. Yeah, submission 1.
That one didn't really bother me as much, but I guess that's just because like I just said earlier, Spring Lake's the newest community. So to me, it doesn't have the boundaries, I suppose, that some of the, or that community feel. But that's my personal bias from not living there, and I'm sure it would not be the case for people who live there.
Yeah, I would say it definitely has a community feel. There's sort of the old Spring Lake and the newer Spring Lake. I'm really not involved with these things because I'm fine with things the way they are, but there are people who have many issues with the city and development and school district and placement of schools and new development, and they're quite active. And so, you know, one of my concerns when I just started thinking about this redistricting thing with Spring Lake being 15,000 people and the other districts, you know, 11,000, to me, the worst thing for providing representation for Spring Lake would be to take little chunks of 2,000 and 3,000 off and put it in 2 or 3 other districts. And that to me doesn't seem fair. And it is actually breaking up a district in a way that, you know, disadvantages Spring Lake because their interests won't be as, you know, well attended if they are broken up in that way. And so,
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, my idea for
I don't personally know what old Spring Lake and new Spring Lake is in terms of the streets and stuff, but that's an interesting point. We definitely, we probably want to make sure to keep those intact.
Maybe. And the thing that I was looking at is just to make sure, you know, they're fairly represented, is to try as best we can to sort of divide it in half. So it's 75 and 7,500 rather than, you know, 2,000 and 13, you know, 100 or 13,000 and 2,000 or some, you know, broken up in 3 or 4 ways would be suboptimal. Whereas breaking it up in half, where each half represented a substantial portion of a new district, then they would kind of have 2 representatives very interested because a good portion of their district was Spring Lake, and there would be 2 people. And I think it's justified because there's so many issues from Spring Lake coming up with the city that having 2 council members really, you know, involved in it, I think would be a good thing because there are going to be a lot of issues coming up, as I understand it. That's my justification for it.
So back to the question of Old Spring Lake and New Spring Lake. I don't know what those boundaries are. Do we feel like, I mean, do any of these maps kind of properly is not the right word, split up Spring Lake in such a way that Old Spring Lake is in one district and New Spring Lake is in another? Like they're not, or maybe it doesn't matter, but
It could be done that way. I think the newer houses are further south. And so splitting it that way, it's hard to move it into another district.
I guess they're not
geographically.
moving there yet either.
And mainly it's the houses that were built in the early 2000s.
Yeah, before the recession and
Yeah, no, I mean, I know generally the areas, but I don't drive out there enough to know.
yeah, I don't think there's going to be a clean way to, break up, the old and new Spring Lake without getting really funky in the boundaries. And I would, Peggy, I'm not going to argue because you're the resident out there, but
Please do.
It's probably less important old and new and more to find that balance of population if it's going to be divided into two districts. So.
I totally agree with you on that. I don't think the old new is a way to put the boundary or necessary that way.
Right. Those that have paid off their Mellows and those who have not.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so then which one, in your opinion, does that?
Well, I again would argue this one, to Peggy's concern, right, puts Spring Lake residents into three different districts, and particularly in the ones in District 2, a very small portion of that district.
Yeah.
So I would suggest
but this could be potentially altered a bit so that it's only in 2, right?
It could, but if you compare this one to, I think the next one of the next maps is not too dissimilar, I thought.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I find these strange, but anyway, okay.
Yeah, sorry, this puts Spring Lake into 2 districts. But,
This is a massive change.
It's a massive change for the rest of the city, but it does, to me, it looks like a decent job in splitting Spring Lake because there's 7,500 people who leave, which is about half. And it looks like it's going into 2 it ends up in 2 districts.
Yeah, okay.
But the rest of it looks very strange. I agree.
Yeah. It's massive disruption.
I would say that potentially you could keep the District 4 and 5 pretty similar to this map, and you could put 1, 2, and 3 back to the way they were. So you lose the stripiness.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that you need to have the districts 1, 2, and 3 striped like that. You could put them back closer to the way they are right now to keep the stability in those 3 districts and still do the split on 4 and 5. Possibly,
Yeah, actually, scroll down to 4A because this one here has 0 districts.
I was just going to say 0. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So 4A would,
And then where it kind of does that.
And so those are just over 50. I'm not comfortable with that.
And what is the number of people leaving Spring Lake there in District 5? I can't read that.
Danny didn't.
I didn't get a chance to do this one.
Oh, that's
that number.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you kind of look at the top one and get,
a sense.
a general idea. Yeah, it's going to be less, obviously, because
Right.
I think the first one does a better job of splitting Spring Lake, but I did not get a chance to break this one apart in that fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can, if that's something that you guys want to see, kind of what those numbers are.
Well, I think we have from my perspective, we've got something we like in these maps, and maybe they could be merged, so the split of Spring Lake in number 4 looks good. The lack of 2 Hispanic districts over 50% does not look good in that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then districts 1, 2, and 3 kind of artificially being put into those stripes.
Mm-hmm.
If that's something that doesn't appeal to people, we could probably have the split in Spring Lake with District 4 and 5. without making such radical changes in District 1, 2, and 3 boundaries. But I don't see any of those solutions in one single map.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I will make a note. So I will probably jump back in there tomorrow and see if, any of these pan out, if we kind of do some of these things.
Great.
Kind of combining the two, or, keeping 4 and 5 from the first map and keep them putting 1, 2, and 3 back kind of their current configuration, see what happens. So yeah, there's some kind of interesting ideas there. We could at least try to see what happens as far as population and the Hispanic voting age. So yeah, interesting.
Okay, so that's the next step on the map side. So is that 3 or 4? I kind of lost track of where we think we might have a number to take to the next step once obviously Daniel works on something.
I'm kind of like 0, depending on what happens when I plug these other 2 scenarios in. So, those are the only ones I have notes on.
Right.
I think we kind of jumped past 1, thinking just it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's look at 7 and 10 real quick again.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, 7 might be a challenge just
And
because.
7's the one that it splits Spring Lake into 3. correct?
Yeah.
No, 7 keeps
it's
Spring Lake all in one district.
Oh, it is all in 1,
Yeah.
but it does look strange in the fact kind of 4 is
District 2 is completely
kind of small.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
you know,
this is the one. District 2 is completely different for the most part.
I think I tried everything I could think of today, and I could not get 4 to stay with above the 50%.
Right.
You know, if we added everything east of Pioneer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this breaks
So-
up District 2, as Peggy
2.
pointed out, into 3.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
get into like some vertical striping there almost.
Yeah.
Or sorry, horizontal. Yeah.
So we rule this out altogether then?
I would rule that one out.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of
Not sure how we manipulate this.
to this.
On a whole new map. Okay, so we got a version of 4 and maybe a version of 10.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think 10 could be edited pretty easily to push 4 above that magic line of 50%.
Okay.
Because District 3 is currently pretty far above it. I mean, it's at 55%. So if we just moved a little into 4.
Yeah, that seems like it would.
The only problem with that I see is that District 3 is a little low on their current numbers. They're already at, minus 2%. So
we could take some out of District 1, maybe.
Yeah, you'd have to get a little creative there, but I think it's doable for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it'd take too much effort. So.
If I remember correctly, that's Danny in District 1 in that northwest border of it. That's where the census trucks aren't linear. They're kind of skewed in a way.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Kind of that area south of Beamer along 98 is kind of wraps all the way down to Main Street. It's a really strange shape. Yeah, there's some weird shapes you have to work with on this, unfortunately. But yeah, I think just kind of pushing, that kind of triangle between 2, 3, and 4 could probably make it work just with a little bit of effort to get that 4 above the 50%. So we get back to 2.
Okay, that sounds good. In your work with 4 and 4A or whatever, you may end up coming up with 2 maps
Very possible. Very possible.
that are closer to the things we're talking about, and that would be something.
Yeah.
So then we'd end up with 3.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling that might happen.
So with number one, I thought you were going to try to fix the Spring Lake going into 3 districts.
Yeah, we could do that too.
Do that too.
Yeah, we did mention that earlier this evening. I forgot.
I don't know how different that
Peggy,
would be.
if we do that, it's almost, I would say, what Mary just talked about, where we take one of version 4 and we keep district 1, 2, and 3 more or less intact, and we break up Spring Lake in a way, right?
Right.
Yeah, and if I can't get that done in those scenarios, I can go back to this map 1.
Go back to this,
push that Parkside back into 4 and
right.
So potentially 1, 4, and 4A would be reworked into one map.
Or maybe
and some hybrid.
Yeah, if there's enough
version
distinction, maybe 2.
Yeah. And then there'd be 10.
the reworked 10, and then the reworked no, it's not 7.
No, 7 is going to be abandoned.
Yeah.
So potentially we end up with 2 or 3. That's quite an achievement.
Right. 11 a week ago. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think we were at 12.
And, we do have another workshop, and we do have I think Chris last night on the virtual workshop said he might submit one, so we could potentially get a few more from the community.
Yeah.
But it's been a little light so far, so hopefully we get a few more.
A little light. Is that what you're saying?
Well, 11 is a lot to look at, so we filled it in with everyone's effort. So
we'll spend some time working on these. Probably warrants another check back before we all forget about what we talked about.
We can always go back to the recording.
Next week, or, we don't have to meet in person. Maybe we could send these out. We've had such good success just sending information to you and asking you to respond. We could do it that way too. If folks, are burned out in evening get-togethers, but we do have T-minus 10 days till the next scheduled workshop. So let's focus on that question for a minute. Right, fair to say that regardless, we're not doing an in-person next Saturday, right? And, that begs the question, do we push it out and try to stick to an in-person, or we just say, look, for the foreseeable future, and given your constraint around time, let's just plan a virtual session. So what's the comfort of the group on that question?
I mean, go ahead, Mary. Sorry.
No, it's Ann. I was going to say this too. Stay virtual only because we aren't sure of what our rate is going to be of new cases. And the state still is moving towards the 15th of raising masks or current mandate.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was a pretty obvious answer to the question, but I wanted to make sure you guys felt the.
So is the idea that we stick with the same model for that meeting, or is there a thought that if we had the potential, say, to give 3 maps that we were looking at?
Yeah, what we talked about last meeting was if we could sort of get down to ideally, 3 maps, we put those forward and we seek input from the community on those, right, to help
for this last session.
Generate enthusiasm about participating, right? So, so
cool.
Well, the maps, when we get it down to 2 or 3, are we going to meet again to decide that those will be 3 that we would like to put out to the public, or are we just going to go straight to the workshop on the 22nd with whatever?
I would strongly recommend we have a pass back through the commission and say, hey, here's the 3 maps. Are you comfortable with, how they produce different, pictures around these key metrics? Get you guys to bless them, and then we put them up on the website, encourage people to attend the public workshop, provide input, as well as other options for maps, right? So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, people can still put in
Right.
their own ideas too.
how does this, positively or negatively affect your community of interest and neighborhood? So, and we'll take that feedback into deliberations over a final recommendation to council.
Mm-hmm.
So we need a time to either we're going to just review it and get back to you on the maps without meeting again, or we're going to have another virtual meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
on the 22nd, right?
What I'll put forward, right, we could cancel the meeting on the 22nd on a Saturday, because I'm not sure, honestly, if you're going to do a virtual meeting on a Saturday for this last touch point, if that's the best date anyways.
Yeah.
I would probably choose a weekday evening. So give yourselves a little bit more time to make sure you're comfortable with the map, and Danny enough time to do his data magic. So,
Yeah.
I say we put out a communication tomorrow saying meeting's been postponed. Look forward to, communication on when the next meeting's going to be scheduled, and probably going to have to be the following week, I would imagine, just to keep us on schedule. But
I would keep that all one communication instead of this
The
one's
new date.
canceled, look for a new date. It's just, hey, last one's this date, look for more info.
Yeah.
Because, to be frank, I'm not sure people have circled the 22nd for months. I think if we just change the website and promote the new date, I think we'll be okay.
Agreed.
all right.
Where was the 22nd going to be? What location? I mean, I know we're going to stay virtual.
Fire station.
Fire
on
station.
Spring Court.
It was a Spring Lake site. Okay.
Yeah. So we got that last week in January.
Yep.
And I will be out of town all that week, but if we go virtual, there's a good chance I might be able to zoom in. And then first week in February still gives you 4 weeks to get through your deliberations. So if that's a better week for us, could look at that week too.
Do you think any particular night of the week is better for the public in terms of other city meetings going on?
Yeah, we should double check. Usually that last week in the month is pretty light in public commission meetings. Most of them are in the first few weeks of the month. Yeah, there's no council meeting on the 25th. And no planning commission the 26th.
Well, maybe that's an option. We slide into the city council timeframe.
Yeah, we can do that Tuesday the 25th.
Only Parks Commission on Monday, the 24th, scheduled right now.
Yeah, I would think Tuesday or Wednesday of that week. But I also agree that waiting till February, first week in February is probably plenty, giving us plenty of time. I'm good either way for either of those weeks.
Suggesting the first week of February, Mary?
Oh, well, Ken did. And I said that was fine for me.
You want to overly
And I
constrain
think
you.
it gives us plenty of time. He said, like you said, it gives us 4 weeks basically.
Yeah.
So I'm good with either.
Me too.
But the point is that we need to get the announcement.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's why I was just thinking sliding into the city council. It's not, they don't have a meeting that day, but it's just that time frame.
Right.
That day might be difficult for me. So being honest, I think the first week of February might be best for me.
Yeah, I
Monday,
think,
the 31st.
I think
That
I
work?
don't love Mondays for
You know, like Mondays.
end of the day for a virtual meeting when I don't know about anybody else, but I've been like virtual meeting all day Monday with staff meetings and everything else. So it's just a tough
Yeah.
Tuesday or Wednesday to me is I like Tuesdays. So.
Yeah, we have a council meeting on the 1st.
Oh.
Probably avoid that, but I think the 2nd should be clear.
Yeah.
2nd would be good.
Yeah.
February 2nd.
2222.
Oh,
There you go.
Ugh.
We'll just give them 2 maps to choose from.
Absolutely. And they get 2 minutes to say anything. And
I think we should
we'll
give
make
them
a
16.
decision in 2 days.
And Ken, I did want to mention that I'm on the website right now, and I noticed that we do have 2 public hearings for the commission, one on Thursday, February 24th, and then an optional one on Wednesday, March the 2nd. So I also didn't know if this was a good time to bring it up, but has the commission thought about what deadline you would like posted on the website as the deadline to submit maps? I think
For the public to submit map.
Yeah.
Well, and I cannot attend a February 24th meeting if it's in the evening.
6:30.
Yeah, I have my Center for Land-Based Learning Board meeting that evening. So it was probably not on my calendar before when we originally talked about these dates. Just don't know. Been a while.
Yeah, because Ken had asked me if we had public hearings set, and I couldn't even remember that we had set
I
these.
think we talked about it at one of our first meetings. It is not on my calendar. This is not on my calendar either. So.
And one of the attendees yesterday asked what the deadline was to submit maps, and I told him that we didn't have a date right now, but that I would mention it to the commission, and that's probably a good information to put on the website too. So something to think about.
I suggest maybe the 24th, because that would be our public meeting, and then we have another tentative set for March 2nd. So, that would give us a week to consider any map that somebody put in. And, I'm in favor of giving people all the time they want, but not all the time they want, because we would need time to look at it. And that would give us time before March 2nd to kind of consider it.
I agree with Peggy. I think the 24th would be a good deadline.
Well, is that deadline assuming there's a hearing that night? So if we have to schedule change for accommodating
Correct.
Mary, so whatever date that first public hearing is what you're hoping?
It's the second one, right? Yeah, whatever date the public hearing is, that
Okay.
way whatever was received before, during the meeting, that's it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we have to change the 24th as that first hearing you guys hold with kind of introduction of your initial recommendation on maps to put forth, 23rd an option.
Yeah, that's good for me.
Spencer, can you check to see if there's any other commission meetings that night? 23rd.
Nothing on 23rd of February. Closest things are Planning Commission 17th, Parks and Rec the 28th.
Okay. Sustainability Advisory. They meet Wednesdays, right?
Yeah, I don't even see it on our upcoming meeting calendar at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not too worried about, it's not a commission, that's an advisory group. So less worried about their potential conflict. All right.
Right.
23rd then.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks. I didn't realize that 24th was a conflict. So glad it worked out.
All right, and then back to next public workshop date,
Mhm.
February 2nd.
February 2nd.
At what time?
I don't know, 6 o'clock,
I think that's working well.
Yeah.
pretty standard. Yeah.
And working even more backwards, do we have a in between now and then map check-in date?
Mhm.
I'm going to lean on Danny to say, how much time does he think he needs to
Yeah.
work
Gives
on
him
this?
enough time.
What
Yeah.
other projects you got weighing on you?
I mean, this is obviously my priority right now. So, I mean, I could probably have something. I mean, I don't want to promise tomorrow, but probably early next week. Let's say, Monday, Tuesday, send it out for Ken to review and on it, and then we'll email it out to the group. So I would say, Tuesday at the latest, I could see it going out to the commission. So,
Okay.
I mean, does that sound okay, Ken?
Yeah. Sounds
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
And then do we schedule a time for us to meet and go over those shortly thereafter?
Yeah, 26th, 27th of January. That's a Wednesday or Thursday.
I'm not available Thursday.
I'm not available Wednesday.
Tuesday, the 25th. Did we have that down for something?
Tuesday and Wednesday, we had said were good dates.
I'm okay with Tuesday. That's the open slot for city council, right?
Right.
The meeting.
Yeah.
I'm good with Tuesday.
This is for the next ARC meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Sound like a plan?
Sorry, which Tuesday did you guys choose? It's fine. I'm just asking which Tuesday.
January 25th.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, was it David and I were scheduled to go to the workshop on the 22nd? We need two.
Yes.
Mhm.
So we would be at the new date of February 2nd for that one, right? Okay.
Right.
And are we keeping that at the fire station or virtual?
Virtual, right? I mean,
Correct. Virtual. And then probably two topics then for the 26th. Let's settle on the maps, and then let's settle on what is the sort of the format and the communication strategy to put those maps out to the public to be aware that we're seeking input on those.
That's the 25th,
I'm
right?
sorry, you mean the 25th, right?
Sorry, yeah. Sorry.
Okay, that was all. Oh no, I just put it in the wrong day.
Thanks for keeping me honest. Very good.
Thanks, everyone,
All right.
for all that hard work last meeting that I missed.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. It sounds like it. Impressive.
Good. All right.
All righty.
Thank you.
Ready to
Bye.
adjourn, everybody.
Have a good evening.
You
Good
too.
evening. Bye.
Bye.